So, Mr. Simon Dean, tell us about you.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because I've just started an agency called Stance, and I'm very interested in hearing people's branding journeys. And I know that the MixCloud story is a great example of a journey that it's really had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And now we're in, well, not even an end, but we're in another chapter. So I'm very interested in when a landscape changes, when a consumer changes, when circumstances change, and the story then has to evolve. And that was part of the reason for having a chat with you.
Yeah. And then I guess the other reason is that we have recently collaborated on a project to deliver a stance to a brilliant East London-based charity. So do you want to tell us just a little tidbit on that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the first thing you said is deliver a stance. So stance stands for situation, transformation, attitude, niche, confidence, and expression, which is, it's an acronym. And I believe that every part of that acronym actually serves quite an important role in telling a story. So in your situation, you have an audience, they have a pain or a problem, and you need to care about addressing that problem, which is your belief. Having a belief is very important for any organization. Transformation is the world after your company has done its good work. Attitude is the way in which you do your business. Niche is the space in the landscape, and confidence are the reasons why you can own that space. And then the expression is the strapline or one-liner. So we went through the stance process to arrive at a stance with the charity. And I think, I mean, there's a few interesting things about the process. The first one is that it was entirely Zoom based. The second one is we basically had a 3-hour long workshop with at some points 20 attendees on a Zoom call. So that was a challenge in itself, which is how do you create a workshop format that feels engaging for that many people when you're not in the same room with someone? And that was interesting because we were able to essentially do little breakouts, and sometimes you'd join a breakout, sometimes I'd join a breakout. At different points in the workshop, people had different slides and kind of people would delete stuff. And that for me was, I think it kind of really worked, actually.
I can attest to that. So as someone that has worked with a number of different agencies and different kind of organizations with different approaches to this process of branding, I love the stance approach, the stance method, because you've made it very playful. You've made it really fun and engaging. And the games and exercises that you use to create the stance are really, really inclusive. So I think it does a good job of bringing everyone on board.
Oh, thank you. About the games and the exercises, I think what I've always found, whether it's an interview or a branding process, is that when people are thinking and speaking freely, that's when the interesting language comes out. So if you want to come back to the SoundCloud and the MixCloud, a music hosting platform or a music sharing platform, they're words which you probably hear again and again and again. But from a branding perspective, you actually want to find language that's a bit more interesting, a bit more novel. And the idea behind the games and exercises were to just get people thinking in different ways. So language that was fresh and innovative would come out. So you didn't just have the same old words making repeat appearances again and again and again. Yeah,
exactly. And the way you do that is by asking questions that are actually really outside the box. You completely move away from the domain of your brand, your sector, the business, and you start looking at, kind of celebrities and archetypes. And I mean, you can tell us. Why don't you tell us about a couple of the games that you feel have been really engaging and really effective?
Yeah. So for the dance charity, the first game was it was called Find Your Utopia, and that was about 12 images were presented, and then you'd have to double down on one image. The attendees of the charity would double down on one image that they felt really symbolized what success or growth would feel like to them. And one of the images was a kind of empty studio. And a lot of people chose that image because actually it embodied their desire to start something, to start a business, to fill a studio, for them to become like a professional dance performer, having a dance-oriented business. So that was a good one. The inverse to that game is called Choose Your Evil, which is like, God, if if everything is the worst that it can be, like, what does that look like? And again, that was quite useful for us because, again, it was image-based. Some of the images were a bit about knife crime or kind of bullying. And there was almost one of these paths that we were going down with the story. It's just like, well, what are we standing for? Are we standing for kind of like stopping people getting into crimes? Or is it more just kind of like dead-end careers? And what happened during the process is that we found out that we really wanted to find a home for opportunity, to make sure that deserving talent always finds opportunity. And that was something that came out through the Choose Your Evil game, through it kind of not going down the knife crime route, but through it going through kind of more opportunities. There's some personality games in there, animals. There's an archetype game where we liken the business to movie characters, and different movie characters have different traits. That's quite useful for the brand personality. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too many away because it's just my IP, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, the description of it is only part of the IP, right? There's a lot more in terms of how you deliver this effectively. So final question on East London Dance. Tell us a little bit about where we landed. Maybe pick out one or two lines from the final stance.
So I'd like to just mention the belief and then also the vision as well. So the belief was when we talked about that kind of that tension between the leadership wanting to take a step in a new direction. That new direction was actually towards creating creative leaders. And the belief that we got to is we believe that creative leaders are essential to developing stronger local communities. And that was a bit of a different place to where they were, because they were a little bit more about just inviting all of the communities into to kind of dance and belong to something. But this was a bit of a departure towards actually we're developing people who are going to shape the future of the East London dance scene. So that was a really interesting part of the journey for me. And then the other bit was really the vision. We see a world where creative talent is always met with opportunity, no matter where you come from. And that was important for us, which was just having this idea that there was accessibility and openness, and that no matter where you are, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, if you've got talent, that talent should be able to find a home.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. And I'll just follow up that one of the things that I think is really powerful about the stance approach, and I think is really crucial for any brand positioning, is a clear articulation of the orthodoxy of the situation of the world we live in right now. And if I'm honest, I've seen so many brand positionings, when companies go through the process of creating a vision, mission, purpose, often they do it in the absence of describing the state of the world today. And I've seen this so many times, and I think actually it's really actually quite ineffective, because you end up with this fluffy language that talks about where we want to go and the vision we see. You haven't contextualized, well, what's happening in the world right now. So it's all well and good if East London Dance, say, as an example, talk about a world in which all talent find opportunity. That's great, but it doesn't mean much unless you've actually described prior to that the state of the world right now, where East London is changing and there are communities that feel really disenfranchised, and there are people that are growing up without opportunity and at risk of falling into crime. So that's I think a really powerful part of the S and the T in the stance.
I mean, I've got a few things to say about that. So yeah, it's a bit like the foundations for the house. You don't always see the foundations, but they make sure that the house is strong. And that's what the situation is there to do. In terms of actually how to write the situation, I was very inspired by the world of film. I've had a passion for film, and I've been on a few weekend directing courses and screenplay writing courses. And what you have for film is a log line. And the log line typically has this formula, which is you have a hero who's in this situation, but there's a challenge, and this thing is going to happen. And actually, a good film will only actually come to fruition if it has a good log line, because that log line is when you bump it, I don't know, you're at Warner Brothers and you're in an elevator and you bump into a producer and I've got this great idea, it's da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's literally the power of that sentence to kind of capture the producer's attention, which ends up in the film getting made. So the way in which I propose that the stance situation is written is, you have a person, they have a situation, the situation is bad, the situation is bad, if it goes unabated, this will happen, and then it's important for us to solve it. And it's that kind of formula that I think helps really crystallize a strong starting point.
Three buddies wake up from a bachelor party in Las Vegas, but they have no memory of the previous night, and the bachelor is missing. So now they have to put together the pieces of the night before and get him to the altar before it's too late. This, of course, is The Hangover. That's probably my favourite in this family of log lines because it's super, super punchy, and this is kind of what you should be aiming for in your situation.
So Simon, I would love to go way back. Tell us about where, if you can find this in the depths of your mind, what got you interested in, what got you passionate about brands in the first place? Where did it start for you?
I think it's a good question. There's different parts to that answer. One part is that I quite like making sense of complex situations. There's a few post-it notes on my wall there. I am someone who, when there's a wall full of madness, I enjoy finding the thread that holds it all together. That's the type of problem that I like cracking. And then I'd put it down to my first job, really. So I actually had a bizarre journey through university in that I started off doing engineering. I then changed to sports science because at the time I was attempting to be a professional athlete. But then my lung collapsed. But then I got a job working for Red Bull in marketing, and that gave me a taste of what a marketing job might feel like. But I realized that off the back of my sports science degree, it was going to be hard to get there. So I then did a postgraduate diploma in creative advertising. And this 1 year creative advertising course where you had a studio set up, where you were paired art director, copywriter, that really gave me a taste for this kind of like creative problem solving. And really just boiling down, actually just even discussing what is an idea, what is a creative concept, and being quite familiar with that kind of vernacular. And in the end, I decided that an advertising creative wasn't quite the right journey for me. But then what I did stumble across is a brand creative strategist. And the brand creative strategist is the person who's able to look at the research and then deliver a compelling story for a brand. And it just felt like a pretty good fit for me.
Yeah, what I love about that, your journey and what you just told us about your story, is that within that you've talked about your kind of skill set of being analytical, logical, kind of framework minded, but also super creative. And to me, that is like fundamentally what brand strategy is about. It's this real kind of combination of left brain and right brain. And it's a very particular skill set. And that's what makes the work really fun.
Cheers, pal.
So moving on, continue with your story, your journey. That's your entry point into brand. Tell us then how that led to the formation of the stance method.
Sure thing. So first part of my career spent in brand agencies. Second part of my career spent in startups, a B2B tech startup, and then more recently a genetics B2C startup. And I knew at some point that I wanted to make my own business, and I also realized that I could go back to being a brand consultant at any time. But it was after this startup work that I actually saw a space in the market, which is startup founders at points in their journey aren't ready to deal with a brand consultancy because that looks like a $20,000 or $30,000 project, but they do need help with their story. And I figured out that I could actually develop a branding course for startups that could help these startups figure out their story using the games and the exercises as we described, so that they could take a pretty good stab at doing it themselves and just kind of get out the gates with a strong story. And then at some point in their life, it would be time to kind of seek that external validation. But I just really wanted to actually what we believe at Stance is that good businesses deserve their time in the limelight. And we're here to help these businesses shine, and we're doing that through having a strong story.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love your purpose there. Actually, I think that's a really succinct articulation of what you believe, and it's true, right? When there's so many founders that I'm sure you've met and that I meet who have great products, great foundations for a strong business, but just don't have that ability to articulate it clearly and effectively enough. And so a little bit of work at the front end, investing time and energy into this kind of process, and crucially bringing the right stakeholders in along that journey can lead to a lot of clarity, alignment, and then a much stronger brand when you go to market.
That is the aim of the game. That is exactly what it's all about.
Brilliant.